Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the Hogue Knives deka. This is the Blade HQ exclusive variant. Unfortunately, it has sold out this version with the weirdly tactical Wharncliffe version and the more attractive drop point version that I kind of wanted to get, but I also wanted to try this one out too because I wanted to really see if the compound grind really felt different going through material. Me personally, I think it's just an aesthetic thing. And it kind of plays tricks on your mind and makes it look like this portion of the blade is canted up further, but it's really not. I haven't sharpened it yet, but I am predicting that when I sharpen it, it's going to feel like a continuous edge, and it's going to sharpen just like any other sheep's foot or Wharncliffe styled edge. I've been keeping this edge alive with a little pocket strap. Now it's done. It's completely destroyed. Not chipped destroyed, but it's just there. The edge is just, it's not really bitey anymore. It's not really too, how I like to keep my edges. So right after this video, I'm actually going to do some maintenance on this guy. I have not taken this apart. I have tested all the hardware. Everything's cranked down nice and tight. It is nice that I could see the Omega springs and everything is quite translucent. This is Ultim. If you guys are unfamiliar with that material, to my knowledge, it was a material developed by the aerospace industry as a super heat resistant plastic. Essentially, it's a plastic. Mainly used on components that have a lot of heat or encounter a lot of heat, but you don't want to add any extra weight. And this thing, it's so light, it basically floats out of your hand, and you got to be a little bit careful when deploying this. And I find myself this thing slipping out of my hand a little bit here and there. So that's one of the things I kind of want to go over really quick somewhere in the middle of this video. But I do want to pull off some specs off of Blade HQ, and I do have a little scale here off to the side so we can really get that weight dialed in. So the overall length of this guy is 7.5 inches. Blade length is 3.25. Perfect blade length. But because it is over 3 inches, just be a little bit educated about your local knife blade laws and things like that, because it may not be legal in some areas. There is no miniature versions of these, unfortunately, but they just are what they are. And I don't think there's too much of a blade length difference between the Wharncliffe and the drop point. You know what, let me just check that really quick for you guys. So that one was 3.25 and the drop point is 3.25, so it's exactly the same thing. So there's really no advantage or disadvantage when it comes to the length of the cutting edge and the usability. It's just really going to be the style of blade. It's the Wharncliffe is going to be more towards utility style tasks, but I will definitely say that the drop point could probably really do pretty darn good in comparison to the Wharncliffe version. It's just, choose which one you want. It's not that really big of a deal between the two. The blade width is 1 inch. Blade thickness is 0.11 inches. Blade material, CPM MagnaCut, which is really one of the main cool factors of this knife. And honestly, with this being MagnaCut, with now Hogue having a higher grade of heat treat on their MagnaCut, I know that at first when Hogue was doing their MagnaCut on their dekas, at first the heat treat just wasn't really anything that was super special. Now it's at probably where it should have been to begin with, which is quite nice, and I can understand now why these knives are very sought after. So you have the cool factor of the blade material, cool factor of the handle material, fully flat ground stonewash. Handle length is 4.25, handle width is 1.125. Ultim black hardware. It says steel for the liners. So yeah, so it's a cartridge styled locking system. It having, I forget what they call it. Is it the Able lock? I think Hogue calls it the Able lock, but it's a crossbar style lock It definitely took influence from Benchmade's access lock. This is exactly the same thing. You can see the omega springs there. There is constant tension being put up against. Let's see if I can disengage it from the back so you guys can see. That's what a crossbar lock style looks like in action, which is it's actually pretty cool to show that off. So I was with some family this weekend, and of course I did take my knife collection with me like some weirdo. But I showed some people this knife and they were just like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. I would have never thought that that's how it works. And yeah, that's how it works. So again, brand Hogue, model deka, designer Alan Olishewitz, and made in the US. If I didn't mention price, $179.96. This is money well spent, in my opinion. I have zero issue with how much knife you're getting here in comparison to, you know, what you spent on it. Now let's bring out some size comparison knives. So start with the Spyderco's. This is the PM2. Every once in a while, I call my PM2 a Para 3, which there are huge differences between the two, but I apologize if I do. I've actually since long given away my PM2. But here we have a Native 5. And up next, let's do the Benchmades. This is the Osborne 940. And the one that the deka is going to compete with the most is the Bug Out. So if I had the drop point version, it would really look the part. But I will say that we'll save the comparisons. I was thinking about doing a comparison video, but there's really no need to make a whole different comparison video. I would definitely say that the Hogue is a winner in comparison to the Benchmade in a lot of different categories. But the Benchmade has it, or the Bug Out has it beat in a couple other things. So we have the CVV Elementum down here and the Demco 80 20.5. So I think that is plenty for size comparison knives. And let's just talk about this guy. Let's do some up and closies. This has not been properly cleaned in some time. It has found its way into my pocket a lot, like a lot, because I've definitely been enjoying this knife, and I think it's going to be a keeper as of, you know, for right now. But it really is dependent on if I can get some titanium scales for this, because I really want to add some weight to this. I know one of the whole purpose of getting, you know, the Ultim and everything was to have the Ultim scales, but now having it in hand, it's just it's a little too light for me. I don't even know if I talked about the weight. I'm sorry if I didn't. 2.2 ounces, so it weighs virtually nothing. Now, as you guys saw, my Benchmade Bug Out is heavily modified with a full backspacer, many titanium components to it, from the Flytanium company, which is sweet. So I can't really compare too much about, you know, lightweight and things like that. But between the two, I would definitely say that there are a lot of ups and downs. But this coming from Hogue, I will say, just like I was talking about of my Doug Ritter knives, they broke in a whole lot faster than my Benchmade knives, and they stay consistent. I don't have to adjust them as much as I do when I want to use one of my Benchmade knives. The cutting between the two, I will definitely say that it's really difficult to really compare, because this Hogue is very comfortable because of the way that everything is shaped. Now, it is comfortable for my hands. I have large to extra large size hands, but slim fingers, so I can, you know, sit right up there and have my thumb further up on that, you know, slightly rounded off, nothing crazy. But it's the spine wasn't left sharp because of the finish that is put on the blade, So it's not like rounded off or contoured or anything fancy like that. But if I really want to choke up, I could stay further back here or be up here. It's completely fine for me. If I wanted to have this more of like a utility style blade or just the cutting motion, I have a pretty good bit of control over that tip, which is something I do definitely enjoy. Let's bring out the bug out for a second again. So I do not have calipers that take the behind the edge thickness. My bug out's been sharpened like 4 times now at this point because it is genuinely a wonderful knife. And I know a lot of people are just like, oh, the bug out, it's so boring, it's so plain, it's whatever. But once you start upgrading it, and that's another thing that I wanted to get into, is that there are a lot of things you can do with a Benchmade bug out that you can't do to a Hogue deka. But the deka is starting to rise in popularity where aftermarket companies are making stuff for it, which is pretty darn cool. I did mention wanting to get some titanium scales for my deka, and I'm just gonna end up selling off the Ultim scales, so just be alert if you are interested in some Ultim scales somewhere down the road. I don't like hard use my knives, so they're gonna be pretty much pristine condition. I like to baby my stuff, honestly. I do. But you know, a lot of things that people didn't like about the Benchmade bug out is that you can flex the scales. It feels like a toy, and it genuinely does. This was originally the Blade HQ exclusive 20 CV. It had green anode thumb studs and green standoffs, 2 of them back here. I've done many modifications to it, and so now the weight has fluctuated a lot. So I mean, I'm not really going to compare much when it comes to weight, but overall how this thing feels in hand, I believe these were called the radar scales by Flightanium. They're shaped quite exactly the same as the stock scales come on a bug out, but I will say that the deka, I feel a little bit more secure because of the curves and the hump here and over here. So this is very comfortable when you're locked in, but you're also locked in. Some people like very straightforward and be able to be a little bit here or there, or really close up if you want to, and everything feels quite the same. And the lockup is more based off of your own grip strength and everything like that. And how just how it feels in hand, how it feels solid. Both of them, the centering, it varies. They're both on washers, both having a crossbar style lock. I will say that I do have to, as I mentioned before, fidget a lot with my Benchmade knives. They're not as smooth, even though I've had them forever. The deka is a whole lot smoother, and I've only had it for like a week and some change, or 2 weeks. It's definitely a whole lot smoother, but it's not like super drop shutty. I do have to keep that crossbar compressed the whole time and really flick it down so it actually comes down all the way. But if I ever let it go, it kind of stops like right there, and then I have to do one of those. So that's just something you kind of gotta be conscious about. But between the two, there are a lot of ups and downs. I enjoy the simplicity of the Benchmade thumb studs and the aftermarket thumb studs that you can get from Flightanium, or there's even a couple other people that make stuff out of even different materials. It doesn't have to be titanium. There's like zirconium and mokutai, zircotai, there's brass, copper. Like, you can make thumb studs essentially out of anything. But I opted for some Flightanium thumb studs, and I've actually added those thumb studs to a couple of my other knives that don't come with them because they work so well. They're so simple and plain. They don't really call any attention to themselves, but they work. There's these little, I guess, steps there, and they're sharp enough but comfortable enough to where I can deploy it all day if I want to, and I don't have to put my nail underneath it. It's actually snagging onto my skin with just enough grip that I'm able to easily deploy it. And even reverse flicking, I do have to put my nail behind it when reverse flicking, but just because it's so tight up against the scale. But it having a detent, or just the tension before you overcome the actual spring, You know, it's really light. It's not like a typical detent on, you know, most knives. Like, what do I have here? Like this, like that. If I had some aftermarket studs, it would take a lot more pressure to, you know, flick that out. But on these guys, because there is no actual detent, it's very comfortable to reverse flick. Talking about the thumb studs on the Hogue, they are unique looking. Nothing crazy, but I will say that they, functionally speaking, well, they're wonderful. They don't go past, you know, the scale. They're actually quite flat with them, as you can see there. They work just fine. But I will definitely say that if I had an issue with these at all, I would just replace them with some more titanium thumb studs that would, you know, that are standard for the bug out. And that's really about it. There isn't a whole lot much more that I have to say about the deka. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time with this knife, and I would definitely enjoy getting some original goat titanium scales. I think they had a drop of them already and I just missed out. It is what it is. But I am looking to get some, you know, when they do drop. I'm not sure what milling pattern I want to go for. Something with some grip. One thing I mentioned earlier is that, you know, if you were pursuing, you know, this knife, I don't know how slick the other ones are, but it does have this really light milling pattern, this like crossed V milling pattern into the handles. It doesn't really offer any kind of traction or anything like that. It feels nice, but it's more of like a worry stone. If anything, it's honestly, there's no real texture to these scales. They're very slick in my opinion, and I did find myself sometimes where this thing almost went flying out of my hand because it's just so slick. So, you know, that's another little thing. One thing with the bug out, I didn't really have much of an issue with that. I never really thought about this thing slipping out of my hands. With the texturing that the Grivory scales had when I first had it, they were fine. They were also a little slick too, but because of the positioning of the pocket clip, this is also not the stock pocket clip, but when it did have the stock pocket clip, I don't really remember having much of an issue with it slipping out of my hands, and I feel like I can get a much harder, more snappier flick out of that. With this, I feel like it's just about to go flying out of my hands, and it almost like twitches as I'm going to, you know, engage. So I mean, this is just something you got to be a little conscious about when it comes to this knife. It weighs essentially nothing, so it could go flying out of your hand, and that's something that you probably don't want to do. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. If you guys did, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. I will be linking down what I can in the description. They are not in stock right now, unfortunately, but with this being something that sold so fast, I have a feeling that they are gonna make more. So just keep an eye out for sure. Like I said, I'll be linking down what I can in the description. And if you guys are subscribed, I definitely appreciate it. If you guys are not, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you are updated when I do unboxing, reviews, giveaways, collection updates, modification videos, and all that kind of crazy cool stuff that I have to offer for you guys. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.